This is my Champanel grape. I planted this about 4 years ago. I didn't have that much interest in grapes, so I didn't really train it. I got some grapes maybe the second year. This is South Texas on Padre Island. This is an old variety in Texas, and it does very well here in Zone 9B in the heat and humidity. But it's a big mess because I didn't know how grapes were trained, and I didn't really train it at all except to put it against this trellis type thing, and it's an ugly mess, and I made up for it in certain ways here. But this is last year blooming, and I discovered that it wasn't producing grapes as well as the year before. This is a Catawba grape that I planted, my second grape, and it died. I don't know what happened. Maybe I watered it too much, is my guess. Maybe not enough, but I probably flooded it. Anyway, this last year was the beginning of my real interest in grapes, and I have these cuttings from the Champanel. I also bought off eBay Cabernet Sauvignon cuttings, only one of which took, and I realized that's not a good grape for this part of the world, but I got it as an experiment. Only one of those took, and that's coming up. And that small leaf there is from that Cabernet that rooted. The left is a Champanel cutting. The right is the Cabernet Sauvignon cutting. After I got interested in grapes, finally, I went to the nearest vineyard I could find, and also in South Texas. They're doing black Spanish grapes. But this is the Champanel last year, before I really got serious about grapes, and this is what they look like before veraison, when they start ripening. I have bird netting, but that does not prevent other creatures from getting in here. So they kind of ripen unevenly, but it's a good grape. It was the variety is by T.D. Munson back in the 1880s in Texas, and it's really good for our environment here. This is a small crop that I got last year, and this is a seedless grape. It's really good on the table, and I decided to make some wine. You can see some of I think a possum got to them, so I decided to harvest them before the possum got all of them, because I couldn't get rid of the possum. I'll get animal traps this year, and I got as many as I could. Picked them before I wanted to. As you can see, I didn't have the opportunity to let them all ripen as they should be, as far as wine's concerned. This is supposedly an old wine grape in Texas too, but it is an American grape, so it's going to have that American genetics to it. This is me harvesting what I could. I ended up with a pretty decent bowl full of grapes, but I think this vine can do better, so I had to learn a lot about how to prune a grapevine, which I'm still an amateur yet, and this is what I froze them, and they're easier to crush after freezing because I picked them unevenly. I was picking them as I could and trying to get them before the animals could get them. And I am an amateur winemaker also, as far as that. So this is what I ended up with. Augmented a little bit of frozen fruit to it and the yeast. And we'll see how this wine tastes. It's going to age for a year. I think it's going to probably be too sweet, but this is the beginning of my vineyard and at the beginning of my winemaking. So we'll see how this goes and see how this tastes. So this is the mess that I have since I didn't know what I was doing when I got this grape plant, and now it's maturing, and there's been no guidance for the thing other than this ridiculous version of a trellis I have going here. So I probably should start from scratch with just the strongest vine, but I want grapes this year, so I'm not gonna butcher it, but I am going to reduce the amount of, I guess you'd call them cordons coming out. And hopefully get this thing to produce a little better this year in a more focused fashion. That's a learning experience. If that wasn't embarrassing enough, you should have seen it before, but this is going to be my new little mini vineyard area. My first step here is keeping the weeds down, but this is the blank canvas that I'm working with. I got grapes on the way, all different kinds. We'll get into that later. I did have one real good cutting that was successful last year, and I'm putting it on a single stake trellis, which is a method used in Mosul. It's used for hillside vineyards, but I'm using it as a space saver method here. So this is another Champanel, and then right by it I have a Catawba that's going to have a large stake like the other one. They're very close together, but I need to save my space for something a little more exotic. But I'll still have these on small vines. Okay, back to the original vine here. Guys, I fully realize that this is a hack job and really ugly, but I'm still not past cutting this down and starting over. I do want grapes this year, and this is part pruning, part experimental pruning, and we'll see what happens. I kept three, I guess cordons you'd call them, and you're gonna laugh at this silly one. It goes way down here, and then it goes around and around, and then we got some last year's growth right there, and that'll probably go next year. I'm just curious what it'll do. I know it's gonna suck energy from the vine, but it'll probably be gone next year. I'm just curious what it'll do. It's goofy, I know. And then I got two coming out, and I'm on the other side of this trellis thing. I got the vine tied down at this level, and then an upper two tied down almost at chest level here. So really goofy, really unprofessional, but you should have seen it before. And if this doesn't work out, next year, I'm really going to do some chopping. I'm still new, and so I'm sure people that have been doing it for a while just say, don't worry about it, just hack away, you can't screw it up. But I'm just still in the new phase of being resistant. I get it, it's better for the vine, but this is what I came up with for this vine this year. And when I have some backup grapes, I'll probably do it right. Maybe even start from the bottom. Keep you posted on how it goes, though. Look at this. Looks silly when there's no leaves, that's for sure.